Yo, what up guys? Freebs FPV here. Today's video is a special one. It's been a long time coming. Now that they are out and people are starting to get them, I can finally make a full review on the Goggles X from Walksnail, and it's upside down, god damn it. The Avatar Walksnail Goggles X, these are the latest and greatest for digital FPV. I won't say it's the best one out there, but I will say it's something that I really like, so take that as you will. I wanted to wait to make this video just so that a new firmware would come out and that the VTX and goggles have a matching firmware, and luckily it did over the weekend. So I want to go into that and talk about the goggles, the specs. I won't go full detail into it because there are other videos out there that cover a lot more and a breakdown of the whole thing. So if you want to check that out, I would definitely highly recommend Mads Tech videos and the Joshua Bardwell review videos. Those two, they're always on top of their game and they always know what they're talking about. And I feel like both of them have different opinions when it comes to it. So it's cool to see both of those videos and get a whole look at like different perspectives on it, including my video, which isn't going to be like the best video, but it'll be fun. One thing about these goggles is they are not made by Fat Shark. It is all from Caddx now. So I don't believe there was any kind of collaboration with these goggles. This is all them. Every design and all of it on here, this is what they wanted to present. I still love my Dominator HDs. They're freaking amazing and they work perfectly fine. The reason being getting these goggles is because there is future proofing to it. The top plate has a VRX that you can remove, and they say they're going to be developing new VRXs and new cameras, so this will be something that I could keep using for years to come and not have to worry about switching anything out or doing anything crazy like buying a whole new set of goggles. But besides all that, let's get right into the specs of the goggles, and I'll compare them to the V1s, and yeah, we'll go from there. Now, the Goggles X have a new optics to them. They are definitely different than what the V1s have. I believe they're a bit bigger and something, and I actually really do like them. I don't see any kind of blurring or anything like that whenever I'm using them, and I find them to be very comfortable with the new foam and goggle strap that I have, which I'll get into later. Comes with a 50-degree field of view and a diopter measurement of +2 to -6. It also comes with a HDMI in and out feature along with an AV in, which means you can use an analog module, and there is a mode you can switch to use analog on here. Along with that, the SD card is placed with that I/O, so you don't have the SD card in the middle, like between the lenses. Now you have it right on the side right here, which is really great. I find that to be a big upgrade because it was such a hassle getting that SD card out. I have short nails, so trying to like pop that thing out was just a bitch and a half. The last spec of it really is just the front LED panels that you get on the goggles. It only has 3 colors, red, green, and blue. Now I wish that they would have chosen like a full spectrum like RGB panel or something, because then you could change colors and pick specific ones or something. The one that I really just want to do is purple. Purple is my favorite color, so I'd rather rock purple than red, green, or blue. So I'm going to see if I can find a way to like modify these. Now, the features of the Goggle X are pretty nice. You get 1080p, 100 frames per second now, and I gotta say that was a lot of fun to fly. I'm not really going to use it a lot just because of the fact that I find the 720p high frame rate to be perfect. I can see everything that I need to. The 1080 just looks really nice. Maybe I'll use it for like cruising or something on a Whoop, or I don't know if it works on the Whoop cameras. I believe it's just on the Pro and the V2 cameras, but I'll have to look into that again. There are 3 different modes that you can use with these goggles. There is the Walksnail mode, which is connecting to the VTX. There is the AV in mode, which is your analog mode, and then your HDMI in mode, which lets you connect to an outer resource or outsource, which will let you connect to like a computer, say, and use the flight simulator on your computer and connect it to the goggles to watch through the goggles, which I find to be a really great feature, and I've been using it a lot, and it's fun. Kind of disorienting at first, but you get used to it just like how you start flying drones in the first place. There still is custom fonts on here, so if you have your old font files from your old goggles, you can definitely drag those onto here and then set them up, and you'll have those same exact ones. The next feature, you're going to need to update the firmware and make sure it is all set, because it is a background wallpaper that you can customize and put onto your goggles. Now, I'll make a separate video on how to get that started and get your own custom wallpaper on there. For the meantime, it's just a really cool feature that I found to be, you know, it's just a little perk here and there. I like how they're adding these small things along with fixing any kind of bugs and issues. I don't care about like a lot of big features right now. I just want performance wise. So adding the little things here and there kind of just makes it cool to see, and like makes me feel like I'm getting a little bit out of these firmware updates. Now there is built-in Bluetooth and Wi-Fi with these goggles, but it is not ready yet. They are still working on their app, which lets you connect to your VTX, or I believe your goggles too, and like be able to extract videos, also update your firmware without having issues. I believe would be like over Wi-Fi or something like that. So that's a really cool thing. Of course, it would be over Wi-Fi. What am I talking about? So those are some features that I find to be very cool about the goggles. There's probably other ones that I haven't mentioned or anything like that. But like I said, there are other videos out there that go in depth with it. Now, let's talk about firmware. So they've just released the new firmware, which is 36.42.4, I believe. Now, it is a beta, which means that it is not a stable firmware. So it is kind of risky to update, so take that as you will. If you are willing to do the update and like don't care about the risk, go ahead. If you're feeling a little iffy about it, I guess I would just wait off a bit until it becomes stable. Now, with this firmware, there are two different versions that you can update to. There is the kernel version and the non-kernel version. The reason they released two different firmware versions is because with the new 4K camera coming out, it is going to be recording, I believe, internally to get that 4K footage, which means the video files are going to be a bit bigger. So the easiest way to explain kernel and non-kernel is that if you are using non-kernel, your videos are split into different clips because it can't take a full file and like upload it that way. And the kernel lets you fully upload one full clip without having any split clips, if that makes sense. There is a risk when updating with the kernel firmware because what it is doing is updating the Linux, which means it is the whole computer itself inside the goggles. So if that gets interrupted, that can corrupt the files, corrupt your processor, and then you will have a bricked set of goggles. The non-kernel is safe to update. If you end up having disconnections, it's okay. You can reconnect and be able to update again. Just understand that there still is a risk when disconnecting or having any interruptions while updating. I went with the non-kernel version just because I want to test everything out. I don't really care about getting the full footage yet. I'm not getting flights that are like splitting videos apart or anything like that. So as a note for that, if you're a freestyler, I don't believe you would really need the kernel version. Now, if you are a long-range pilot or anyone that does cinematic work, I would definitely go with the kernel version just because you're getting everything in one video, and along with the OSD and DVR footage getting put into one file, it makes it a lot easier for you in post editing to get your DVR footage on there if you're ever making like review videos or comparison videos for the goggles. Like I said, in order to use the custom backgrounds, you need to update to this firmware. It doesn't matter which one you update to, as long as it's the new 36.42.4, you'll be able to use the custom backgrounds. Some issues that I found that were fixed for me were when I turned on the goggles with the first firmware, there was a dead pixel in the bottom right corner that didn't really bother me, but I do notice it. And when I updated, that actually went away. And I did hear issues about people having dead pixels when they turn on their goggles. So I'm glad this kind of like fixed itself. I'm glad it wasn't just like a dead pixel that can never get fixed. So good on them for doing that. And one thing that happened to me while I was flying, even though this was only one time it happened and this was before updating the firmware, I was flying my Whoop around the garage near my work, and out of nowhere I got gray screened on my goggles, my VTX shut off, my drone shut off, everything. So I checked the goggles. It was pretty warm, and I do realize that I have the heater on in my car, so it could have just been an overheat issue. I switched everything, turned my car AC on, put my goggles against it, waited a sec, turned them back on, and they were perfectly fine. But overall, this new firmware, I believe, is a step up from the release of everything, and that release definitely was a mess, and it kind of sucks that like it had to be that way, and which is the next segment that I'm going to be jumping into, which is my thoughts on how everything was portrayed. I'm going to be honest, it was a really, really rough start to getting these goggles released. I feel like there was a lot of pressure between the company and the customers that there needed to be something out, because the way they released it and teased it was a very, very long tease. It all started in August, end of August, where they said something, hey, coming out in October, we're going to have an announcement. Not till the end of October, they finally announced that there was the Goggles X, and pre-orders, I believe, went up as soon as November started. Pre-orders went up, everyone definitely went for it. I've seen a lot of people, I wanted to wait, but then I realized, I want to try these out myself. That way I can give you guys an opinion on how these are, even though I'm not really a big pilot in the whole community, but I do love flying FPV and I do love trying out new things, and I like the equipment that I have. So yeah, I'm just rambling on now. Now, the issue with that was talking about when it's going to be coming out. There wasn't really an exact release date. There was just talk here and there, and people were kind of concerned about that. Some people canceled their orders. Some people were just like, I'm going to wait until release. And when release did come, I believe it was the middle of November, something like that. I got mine, I think like third week of November, something like that. So a lot of people are still waiting on their goggles, which kind of sucks. The pre-order system was not great because they didn't have production, like, or enough produced goggles made to give out to everyone during pre-orders. So there are batches going through. I believe second batch is already set up and should be shipping out soon or into the new year, and then so on and so forth with every other batch that comes in. I know about pre-orders and how they say if you pre-order, it's always like bad because there's always going to be some kind of issues and stuff, but honestly, I don't care. I'd rather see those issues and feel them for myself in order to know that, hey, this is real and I could talk about it. And the fact that other people want to talk about it too is great, because we're getting the word out that there might be some issues that need to get fixed, and of course with the new update they were able to fix some of those. A big reason why I'm using the Goggles X2 is because I have several different types of VTX through Walksnail, and I love that there's a variety of VTXs out there. I've got a tiny whoop, I've got a 3-inch, I've got my 5-inch freestyle quads, and pretty soon I'll have my 7-inch long range set up with Walksnail in it, and I won't even need to use any other kind of goggles anymore. I can just use this and that's it, and I don't have to worry about that. And also just using the Caddx Vista, I love that. That VTX was solid. It was super dope. I just didn't like the size of it. It did take up a lot of space in my quads compared to the Walksnail VTXs, even though they're a bit wider and stuff. I love that there is way more space in my quads. Some upgrades that you can do for the Goggles X, which I highly recommend, is to get the fat straps for them. If you can't find anything Walksnail related, the Goggles 2 from DJI are compatible with these goggles. So I got the DJI Goggles 2 fat strap on here. This is the olive drab. And another good upgrade is the foam. So this foam is the Max Comfort from Newbie Drone, something like that. I'll have links for the upgrades in my description. That way you guys can find them easy. Don't have to worry about searching all over the place for it. So you're welcome, guys. The DJI Goggles 2 Max Foam from Newbie Drone fits perfectly on here. It does come with like an extra Velcro thing, which I put on here just in case to kind of get it more secure, but it holds on pretty well. It's like you just got to hold it down there, let it mold in, put it on your face for a bit, it'll stick. At first it felt like it was going to fall off, but now it's pretty solid. But this has been a huge upgrade compared to the stock foam that it has and the stock straps. So links in the description for you guys. An important note about this is not a DJI killer. This is not a HD0 killer, nor is DJI or HD0 Walksnail killers. I feel that every system has their good aspects and bad aspects, and it's all up to you to decide on whether you want to get these goggles, the Goggles 2, or an HD0 goggles, whatever you feel is like best for you. I just think it's amazing that we have all sorts of different digital systems out there now for everyone to enjoy, and that the fact that we don't have to rely on just one system now, and we have other ones that we can try out, and that's freaking awesome. I will say with my V2 VTXs, I get way better connection with them and the RF signal, so that's a good plus. My V1's always popped in with like 3 bars instead of 4 bars, so I'm really glad this one gets full reception from it, and an upgrade definitely with the antennas too. The stock antennas, they're okay. I'm not gonna go with them. I'd rather use some third-party antennas that are more reliable, the ones that I've been using. So that's another thing too. If you want to find new antennas, you'll be able to find those easily on like Pyro Drone or Newbie Drone, anywhere. Now we are getting into the flight footage. This is the V2 VTX with the single antenna. As you can see, image quality looks pretty good, and the one thing that I will note is that it only records 60 frames per second, 1080 by or 1920 by 1080. So take that into account when you're outputting footage from your goggles compared to your VTX, where the VTX can output 100 FPS. Now, reception or RF quality is improved definitely a lot. The only issue I'm having right now is my receiver is acting up and doesn't want to fly right, so my deadband is all messed up. This quad doesn't like to move straight in a line. I don't know if you can really tell, but it does like to move a lot, so that's one issue with it, but that's not because of the goggles or anything like that. And a bit of freestyle for you guys just to show you how it acts with it, but again, I have a bad tune on this, so it's not going to be the best freestyle out there. But let's move on to the Pro camera next and see how that image quality does. The Pro camera, I believe, has more of a flatter image to it, or flatter color image compared to the V2. I've noticed that there was more saturation with the V2 compared to the Pro camera, but Pro camera is definitely doing really good. There is a bit more latency on it, but I think that's just because I might have this pushing. No, it is in 720 high frame rate. There's just a weird latency thing with the Pro cameras. I think it does a bit longer latency compared to the V2s just because of that Sony camera that they're using, but overall it still flies really great. But then again, this quad is not perfectly tuned either, so there might be some jitters and whatnot. It is not the goggles, it is the drone itself. Overall though, the Pro camera with a single antenna is really great, and I believe the Pro with a dual antenna also is just going to be the same thing, but we'll show some flight footage anyways. Now the Pro with the dual antennas, I believe I've noticed this camera actually has better color image than the single antenna, but I'm doing a bit more freestyle on this one just because I wanted to test out, see how it looks. But 60 frames per second with freestyle doesn't really look too great, so it's like kind of choppy and everything, but the drone can freestyle and the goggles can keep up with my spang stuff, so that's really nice. And there's really not much else to say because it is, once again, the Pro camera just with the dual antenna VTX. So to end things, overall, I'm enjoying these goggles. They're really fun. I'm able to take them everywhere, use any kind of quad I want, and enjoy flying. They definitely have been reliable, especially with the new update. I have had way better image, connection, RF, all that. It's been great. I feel like the version before with unmatched firmware definitely makes it, you can feel a difference in it just because there's certain things missing, but matching firmware makes it so much better. And even though it's beta, it's still something, and I'm glad they put something out. I'm not going to suggest these goggles for you. All I want you to do is watch this video and get an idea of what you think about them. Maybe this could be the next goggles you get, maybe not. Maybe you might hate them. Maybe you might talk shit about them. I don't care, actually. But I really hope you guys enjoyed the video and were able to get something out of it. And I'll have some more videos with this. I will also have the video on how to make custom backgrounds, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, I hope you guys have a great one. Keep ripping out there in the free world. Peace.